Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, managing editor of Canada's Podcast Network. Joining me today is Cal Jungwirth, who is Director of Permanent Placement Services with Robert Half. Thanks for joining us today, Cal.
Thanks for having me, Mario.
Well, you folks at Robert Half put out an interesting survey today, and on hiring. More than half of companies surveyed plan to hire for new roles this year. I'm surprised by that. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. We do a lot of research, and what I'll add on to this, we did the exact same survey about 6 months ago, and the number at that point was only 40%. So that number is actually going up. And I think what that speaks to, we read a lot of different chatter out there in terms of what's around the corner with the higher interest rates. Is that going to lead to the dreaded R word, the recession? And what we're seeing is that in different markets, different things are happening in the economy, but organizations are still busy. They're still looking for people, and they're still having a tough time keeping up delivering the services and the goods that they deliver. So yeah, absolutely. Organizations are looking to add headcount. One of the things that we've really wrapped our head around as well here in the last, I'd say, 12 to 18 months is just the demographic shift. There are a lot of individuals at that retirement age, and we're seeing a lot of people exit the workforce. And I think the workforce is thus having a tough time keeping up, filling all the jobs, whether they exist today or they're going to be created next week or next month.
The interesting thing I found in the survey was 9 out of 10 managers face challenges finding skilled talent. Is that becoming even a more growing concern in recent years?
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of wonder if maybe it's going to be the new normal. As we both read, the unemployment rate is hovering around 5% for Canada, which is pretty much historical lows. So at the end of the day, are there still people looking for work? Yes. But there's organizations looking for talent. And, one thought is that those two pools, the people and the openings, don't necessarily match. So there's a little bit of a mixed match. But the other piece is that people have a lot of choice right now. So organizations have to almost sell themselves to potential candidates versus maybe how you and I would think about it traditionally as we interview for a new role and
Yeah.
compete. Right?
Yeah. And when we're looking at it, some of the data in that survey showed that up to taking up to 14 weeks on average to find a person for an open position. What when it takes that long, what impact does that have on a company?
Well, number one, if there's an opening that's not filled, there's obviously work not getting done. So depending on the organization, depending on the position, there's going to be that cost. It also impacts the other people at the organization. You know, if there's an open seat or open seats,
Yeah.
there may be logging extra hours, there's extra stress. So now you're putting them at danger of maybe hitting a wall and looking to make a move and doing something else. So there's a lot of different impacts. So one of the things that we really coach organizations and work with them on is having a very efficient, kind of very dialed in interview and hiring process, because you just can't afford to kind of put it off that next meeting until next week, or put off the decision until next week. Because again, individuals, they have choices and they're losing interest if they're not moving ahead in a efficient manner.
Okay, and the other one of the other trends we're seeing, 65% said that they were intending to hire people on contracts. Tell me why that's happening, and why we're seeing more and more of that kind of situation and transpiring in the workforce.
Yeah, I think it's twofold. So number one, it speaks to what you just referenced. Open seats are lagging through the hiring process. So organizations are tapping into contract individuals to kind of fill in the gap. So let's say it does take 3 months to hire your new XYZ position. You could drop someone in who's maybe not a long-term fit, but they could do the job. They're capable, and they'll kind of keep the seat warm and keep the work flow going, and keep the workload caught up. So that's kind of scenario number one. Scenario number two is just simply organizations that are going through change. different types of change management, system changes, other examples like that. They could bring in horsepower that they don't need to commit to long term. So
Yeah.
if an organization was going through a system implementation and that was going to take 12 months, you could bring in someone who's experienced and very good at running a system implementation, bring them on for a 12-month contract, and then when the project is done, you wish them all the best. So there's no long-term commitment.
Yeah, exactly. Anything else, Cal, that strikes you about what's happening right now in the workplace and the workforce in Canada?
Well, you know what? I do think there is a little bit of disconnect about what we're talking about. When I talk to organizations or even I talk to people in my network and they ask if we're busy, I'm like, yes, we're very busy, and that almost surprises them. So, and I think, like you mentioned, you were surprised at the results of the survey and the research. The the hiring has not slowed down, so organizations
Yeah.
really need to still kind of keep the blinders on and be very focused when it comes to hiring, and really take a step back almost even before they start the hiring process and ask themselves, okay, what makes us a unique employer? What makes us different than the guys across the street? Because guess what? We're all fighting for the same talent. So you need a value proposition to take to market to get the right people in the right seats.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thanks very much, Cal, for joining us today.
No, thanks for having me.
All right, that was Cal Jungwirth, who is Director of Permanent Placement Services with Robert Half. I'm Mario Toneguzzi, Managing Editor of Canada's Podcast Network, and we're taking care of business. Thanks for joining us today.